Howdy, howdy, howdy. Let's do another lab assignment. Let's add to and improve the code that we wrote in the previous lab. As with previous labs, I want you to start over. I want you to create a new game.html file for this lab. Copy and paste the code below, the code down below this web page. You can see it if I scroll it down here. Copy and paste this entire code from start to finish into a new file. There's a reason I'm doing it this way. Number one, I want you to create backup files. So if you've got some code to work and it's working well, I want you to save a copy of that code in your previous lab file. Number two, if something should go wrong with your new code, I want you to have just a small step to go back from and restart. If you piled this all into one file and something went wrong, you may have to go way back to figure out the problem. Less we have to go back to figure out a problem, the better it is. So I want you to keep that old code as a reference, so when something goes wrong in the new code, you can go back and look at it. Then I want you to copy and paste and replace the start function from your previous lab. That's why we're keeping the old code. You wrote a start, it printed a message. Just bring that new code over into the new file. Same thing for function update. Copy, paste, and replace the function update from your previous lab. Make sure that you copy and paste the whole function. The function starts with the word function. It goes to its closed curly brace. Go to your old code, copy that, and bring it over into your new code. Let's add a new global variable named score. We want to keep track of the player score. We want this score to go up when something good happens. We want this score to go down when something bad happens. We're keeping track of the player's score. We want this to start with an initial value of 0.0. We want this to be a floating point value, a number with a decimal point. Add another new global variable named health, and this one should have an initial value of 100. 100 should be a integer value. We're going to only store integer values in this variable health. Health will go up when something good happens, like I pick up a med kit or something like that. Health will go down when something bad happens. Now, inside the function update, let's add to the code we wrote for the previous lab. When the character is in the bottom right corner of the canvas, we want to add 0.5. Remember, score is going to be a number with a decimal point. We want to add 0.5 or half a point when we're in the bottom right corner. When the character is in the top right corner of the canvas, subtract 0.5 from the score. So we want to have a way for the score to go up and down. We're going to use the corners of the screen for that to do it. I've got my interpretation of this code up and running. Let's see how it works. When I go to the bottom right corner of the screen, I want the score to go up, and you can see the score went up to 118. When I go to the top right corner of the screen, I want the score to go down. So bottom right, score goes up. Top right, the score goes down. When the score gets below 0, reset it to 0. Now remember, this is a decimal number, so maybe we want to set it to 0.0. When the score gets above 200, make sure we set it to 200. Again, maybe we want that to be 200.0. Now what am I talking about? Well, I'll bring up my code again. I'll bring up my version of the game. When the score gets too big, I want to stop adding to the score. I don't want score to go to infinity. So you can see the score topped to 200, and even though I'm in the corner, the score doesn't change from 200. And same thing on the bottom side. I do not want a negative score. The lowest score this player can have is 0. So when the score hits 0, make sure it stops at 0. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're just getting used to scoring our game. Obviously, we'll add more to this later in later levels of the game. When the character is in the bottom left corner of the canvas, we want to add 1 to the health variable. Remember, this is an integer, so we want to add in increments of whole numbers. When the character is in the top left corner of the canvas, we want to subtract 1 from the health. So bottom we add, top we subtract. When health is below 0, set it to 0. When health is above 500, set it to 500. Just like with score, we want to set a minimum and maximum value and don't go beyond that. popping up my screen again, you can see I can modify the health variable. When it goes to the top left, it goes down, and you can see that health stopped at 0. When I go to bottom left, health starts to go up. And once again, I want the health to cap out. I don't want the health to go on forever. I don't want to see a health score of 100,000. We want to top it off at 500. Make sense? So let's put score at the minimum and health at the maximum. There we have it. That's all this is going to do. It's a pretty simple level of the game. We want to start getting used to this idea of scoring and tracking the player's health. I assume at some point when the health gets low, we'll kill the player. The player will die. No health points. It should stop living. Same thing on the score. If we want to start tracking scores and see who gets the high score at a particular level or a cumulative high score for all the levels of the game, we got to keep track of the score. I imagine you'll be writing a lot of if statements here or if else statements. Go ahead and use hard-coded values when checking X and Y. I want you to see the relationship between the canvas size and the values you use. Now we'll change this later in a follow-on lab. It's not a good idea to code with hard-coded values. But early on, since you're new and I want you to get used to the X and Y coordinate system, I want you to see those values and I want you to pick the point where you want the scores to go up or the scores to go down or the health to go up or the health to go down. So use hard-coded values now. We'll upgrade this and learn a better way to do it when we're a little more advanced in a later lab. So you should be very familiar with this code by this point. It's pretty much the same here at the top of the code from your previous lab. Remember, these are what we call our global variables. We will be adding new global variables for this lab, so they should be added to this list. We'll also be moving those new variables in on subsequent labs. Here's our start function. You should replace this start function from your previous lab. Now that's a short function, so if you want to just rewrite the start function to output the start a game message, feel free. Here's the update function. This is what I should expect you to replace. You already have an update that you've written from a previous lab. I think it's better to copy, paste, and replace this code from your previous lab. Here's our game engine. I'll be honest with you, this particular lab, I haven't made a whole lot of changes. All of this code should be familiar to you. It should be coming from the previous lab. Here's the start function being called. The start function is being called at the beginning of the game, and it should output your print message. Here's the update message. Remember, the update message gets called every time we refresh the screen. Currently, we're telling the interval to be 17 is our refresh rate. So 60 times a second, I expect update to be called. Here is what's new on our game engine. I've decided to display the score and health for you. Games almost always have some score to score a health variable, so let's add that into our game engine. I set the fill style to black, which means I want to draw in black on the screen, and I output score, and score is going to go down at the bottom left of the screen. 10580 is bottom left. Then I output the health variable, the label health, and then the value of the health variable, and I'm putting that at the bottom right of the screen. This is why it's important that we stick to an 800 by 600 screen. If you change the size of the screen, we might be losing where these are printing out. Again, I'm using hard-coded values so you can kind of see where they're going to show up on the screen without guessing where they're showing up on the screen. In later labs, we may update this so we stop using hard-coded values on the screen. And I will, in later labs, point out clearly where I do that. Mouse move hasn't changed. Key move hasn't changed. Basically, these 3 lines are the only 3 lines that are new in our game engine. Remember how a game engine works. When you're ready to program a video game, you use something called a game engine. Part of the code for your game is going to be the code you write. Part of the code for the game is going to be the game engine code, which I write. As you're updating your code with each lab, I'll be updating the game engine as well. I only made a slight change this time, but I'll make major changes or more significant changes as we go on in the labs. Once again, I will pull up and show you what your code should be doing. Score should start at 0 and health should start at 100. So let me reset my game. Remember, all I have to do is hit reload and it resets the score and the health every time. Score should start at 0 and should go up when you're in the bottom right corner. It should go down when you're in the top left corner, and it should never go negative. Health should start at 100 and it should go up when you're in the bottom left corner, and it should go down when you're in the top left corner. And health also should have a minimum and maximum. In the case of health, it's going to be 0 and 500. You can see now that I'm at 500, health stays at 500. That's it. Good luck with this lab. We'll see you on the next one.